Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, it's warmed up slightly today. I think we hit about 20 degrees here in the Ozarks. We're south central Missouri, and got a little bit more snow this morning, about another 4 inches. I think we're hovering right around 10 inches total. But there are some places in the United States that are still struggling. Especially down in Texas. And I'm sure you all are well aware of it. Some of you live in Texas, but it has been all over the news. And I want to talk a little bit about what you can do to kind of prepare for what they've gone through. My wife is actually from Texas, and most all of her family still lives there. So, I've kind of got some firsthand stories of what's going on and what they're dealing with. I sympathetically, I can understand to a point people not being prepared down there because they don't normally get this kind of weather in Texas. On the other hand, you should still always be prepared. For instance here, it's very rare that we have to deal with forest fires. It's just not something that normally happens in the Ozarks, especially our part of the Ozarks. But we still have preparedness plans in place in case that happens. So just because it may be rare, you should still always prepare. Another thing, I don't remember the last time there was an earthquake. In fact, the last big earthquake was the big one back in the early 1800s on the New Madrid Fault Line, and it didn't affect us too badly here from what I've read. But we still would know what to do if there's an earthquake, and the preparedness plans that we have in place would help us get through that if there was an earthquake here. So just because it may not be a normal thing for you doesn't give you the excuse to not prepare for it. And unfortunately, people had a chance to prepare. There was some prediction in the weather that it was going to get bad. And I think a lot of people there just probably figured, that's not going to happen here. We don't get that much snow. We don't get that cold. So here's the deal. The three things that they're dealing with is that they're cold. People don't have enough food because they either can't cook the food because they don't have any utilities, any electricity to cook their food, or they can't get to the store because the roads are bad, or they get to the store and the lines are so long and there's not a lot there. Then the third thing is water. I saw something from a fellow prepper down in Texas, and that's dealing with this, and his account was that they're without electricity, and they can't use their water because all the water pipes are frozen. And of course, he has prepared for that. So he has camp stoves to cook inside the house, and he has water filtration. And there's a creek not too far from his house, and they've been going down to the creek, busting the ice up to get to the water, bring it up to the house, screen it, boil it, and then running it through the filter so that they can have drinking water. This guy's prepared for something like this. Is he having the best of his life right now? Probably not. It can be fun if you look at it that way, and especially if you're prepared. But there's a big difference between barely making it by and, at least, surviving quite well. And I hope that there are people in Texas and other places that have been hit pretty hard with this that may have a little bit of a wake-up call that you need to be kind of prepared for this kind of stuff. So some tips to go over. Number one, obviously, is food. You need to have food on hand. I mean, I hate to even say this, at a minimum of 2 weeks. I would say a minimum of 6 months. But, for a lot of people, 2 weeks is a lot of food. It's kind of crazy when you look at the national statistics that the average household only has about 3 or 4 days worth of food in their home. To me, that just sounds crazy. So at least have a few weeks worth of food in your house. But you also need to have food that you can cook and prepare in circumstances where you may not have, all your utilities. So if you're, you want to have stuff that may be easy to prepare, easy to cook. If you're not able to use certain appliances, Maybe your refrigerator isn't working. So if your prepping food is completely dependent upon electricity or the grid, then you need to have at least some foods that are, good backups. One of the ones that I recommend is your canned soups that are already, not the condensed kind, but the ones that you can just eat out of the can, and all you have to do is heat it. And technically, you don't even have to heat it, um, but all you have to do is heat the can, and you have a full meal right there. So have enough food on hand to be able to get you through at least at minimum a few weeks. I would push at least for 6 months personally, and I advise anyone to have at least a 2-year food supply. But I understand if you're starting out, things are tight. You may not be able to go out and drop enough money to get 2 years of food. So at least get a few weeks to 6 months started. And then you need to have ways to prepare that food. So you need to have maybe propane stoves, cook stoves, or other means to prepare your food to cook while you are going through whatever it is, whether it's a snowstorm, ice storm, tornado, hurricane, grid failure, whatever it is. Make sure you know what is safe to use. It's a sad thing when you see people, and there already has been this year, that have died in their homes because they've been using a barbecue grill in their house to stay warm, and not realizing that they can asphyxiate because of the carbon monoxide poisoning inside their house. So make sure that you have a way to vent it and that you're using things that are safe to use in your home. Usually when you're using any kind of alternative fuel in your house, even ones that are indoor safe, they always recommend to have, a window or two open to allow the fumes to vent. So always remember that. And then along with the cooking, you need an alternative source of heat. Now out here in the country, a lot of people use wood like we do. And so as long as you've been prepared and you have, wood ready to burn, you're going to be pretty good. And even if you run out, there's enough trees, as you can see in the background around, that if I had to, I could go out and cut those trees up and burn them. For those of you that don't have wood heat, you need to look at other alternatives. There are propane and kerosene heaters that you can use. A lot of people rely on little space electric heaters, but as you've learned, if you're in Texas, they're kind of worthless when the electricity doesn't work for several days. So have these on backup, and maybe you'll never use them again. Maybe you only use them once every few years, but let me tell you, when you do need them and you have it, you're gonna love it. I remember when I was a kid growing up, for a while, a place we lived, we didn't have a wood-burning stove or anything. We were hooked up to the grid. I think it was natural gas and electricity. But my dad always had a kerosene heater. And one year, sure enough, we had a pretty bad ice storm, and we were without power for a few days. And that little kerosene heater kept enough of the house warm that we could live, and my mother even cooked on the top of it. It wasn't something we used often, but when we needed it, it sure came in handy. So make sure you have stuff like that. And then, your water. That's something that a lot of people take for granted so much. It's interesting if you do the research and reading that in a lot of the rest of the world, especially your third world countries, water is almost as valuable as gold in some places, especially clean drinking water. It's in such limited supply to be able to have good, clean water. And here in America, we take it for granted. I mean, we waste so much water. The amount of water that average household goes through on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis is just insane because we waste a lot of it. And we take it for granted. Everyone knows that you just turn the faucet on and there it is. Everywhere you go, there's water. Well, there are times when that water doesn't exist, and a lot of people in Texas are realizing what it's like to deal and to live without water because their pipes are froze solid. So you need to have alternatives to that. Having water, stored is, of course, a good idea. Have it in bottled water, buckets, whatever containers that you want to choose to put your water in is good. But the thing is you can't store up enough water to last forever. You can store a few days, maybe a week, if you're really hardcore about it. But yeah, you need to have another source. So do your best, if you can, to think of another source of water. Do you have a creek or stream or pond or a lake nearby that you can go to get water? Are you able to capture the water from your gutters and store it that way in containers? That way you have water on hand. Now, if you do that, the other thing is you need to have a way to purify that water to make it drinkable. And I recommend the gravity-fed filters for homes. Um, we have both a Berkey filter and an Alexa Pure filter. There's links to those in the description below. And those are the big stainless steel water filters. And I love them both. I don't know that I recommend one over the other if you're interested in either of them. One's a little bit more expensive than the other. There's links below. But have something like that. You want to be able to, would recommend a 3-part process. Number one, you need to filter it for the larger solids. So run it through some type of maybe cloth filter that gets out the sand and the grit and the debris and things like that. Then put it on a pot and on heat and boil it. And you want to boil that water, a good rolling boil for several minutes. And that's going to kill out any parasites, bacteria, just junk that you don't want that's going to make you sick. And then run it through a filter and run it through something, whatever filter you have, but the really good ones will filter just about anything, including chemicals like fluoride and chlorine and things like that. And that's what the Berkey and the Alexa Pure both will do. Once that's done, you have drinking water. It's not as easy as just going in and turning your faucet on. You have to put a little work to it. We've become a soft people in this nation, okay? Not all of you are, I get it. Some of you live a pretty tough life. But this country as a whole, one of its worst problems is that we've become soft. And we've become so used to our modern conveniences that we've forgotten all these tools and these ideas and these abilities and these skills to survive and to make something out of nothing, to go off into the wilderness and to carve out a little piece just for ourselves. That's what our early pioneers did, and they didn't have any system to back them up. They didn't have anyone there to catch them if they failed. They knew they had to do it on their own. The average American has lost that, and we have to rekindle that pioneer spirit within us. And if you do that, surviving something like this becomes much easier. Even if you don't have all the equipment that you want, just having the skills and the knowledge and the motivation, the grit is what I like to call it, that you know that no matter what, you're going to survive, that you're going to figure it out. You're going to use your brain and you're going to look at the problem and figure it out. That's the kind of spirit that we need back in this country. Instead of this, just sit around and someone will come and fix it and take care of me spirit, which has been here for far too long. So folks, I hope this week has been a lesson learned. I saw that I think it was something like over 70% of the United States is covered in snow. It's been the most snowfall over the entire United States since records were start being kept. Numerous cities, too many to even list, have had record low temperatures. Here in my area, in the southwest part of Missouri, it's been the coldest that it's been since 130 years ago. This is something that we need to take serious. And if you look at the grand solar minimum thing, there's a very large possibility that this kind of winters could eventually become normal for quite a while, as the sun's going into its cooling or its low activity period, which can affect the weather here on the planet. So you need to do what you can to prepare. I know you're saying, well, why are you telling us this now? We should have known this 2 weeks ago. Well, I've been talking about this stuff for months, for years. Um, but now, sometimes, it's kind of like children. Sometimes you have to let them burn their bottoms before they realize what you're saying is true. So now, so many people have struggled and have realized, they've kind of gotten that slap in the face that, wow, this is what it's like when we don't prepare. Now you need to take it serious and do the things in your life, whatever it is, to start preparing, not just for another big snow or, Arctic cold weather, but a lot of things in your life that can happen. We are living in probably the most uncertain times that humanity has ever experienced. And I don't believe that there's any sign of it slowing down. All you have to do is turn the news on, if you don't believe me, and see what's happening. And this cold weather, it's not just happening here, it's happening all over Europe, um, Russia, even down in the Middle East. I saw that Israel and Syria and Lebanon has snow on the ground. In the last couple of weeks, even the Sahara Desert has experienced snow. This cold weather, it's serious now, and it may be something we have to deal with for several years. So along with all the other things that you do to prepare, and for those of you that are kind of behind the game, you need to catch up, and you need to do the things you need to do to get your home, get your life in order, get your house in order, because this is serious, folks. There's been a lot of people that's struggled over the last few days. There's even been some people die, and don't take it lightly. Preppers have kind of been the butt of a joke for a long time, and I think over the past year, a lot of people are waking up and realizing that maybe they're not the laughing matter that we thought they were. So watch some of the past videos on this channel if you need to know more, and there are certainly many other channels out there that you can glean information from on how to become more prepared. If you look down in the description below, there's also some links that'll help direct you in that area. All right, folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.